Thank you, sir, for that wonderful introduction and for that video. My name is Mahima, and I know the topic is pretty long, but I hope to put you in an existential angst and take you through the journey of what is happiness. Why is it so difficult for all of us to be happy? And what it means to flourish. So, I hope all of you have received a piece of paper from my side, apart from the judges, of course. Yeah, thank you. I hope you can keep it handy while I take you through my performance. The agenda for my presentation is that I want to tell you what the Flourish Measure is. I want to tell you what happiness is and what the world of positive psychology is doing currently. It is very personal to me because I'm a therapist, and the underlying problem that all of my clients as well as teachers come up to me is there's something lacking, right? And well, I came across this model very recently and I found it very effective in some of my clients, so I thought I'll explore it, right? And I'll end with a case study. We set our expectations unrealistically high. We tend to put our happiness as a destination. We think there is happiness at the end of racism, probably homophobia, at the end of systemic violence, or probably once you achieve what you wanted to. Right? These are many reasons why we are unhappy. We fear that we'll be disappointed. We fear unhappiness more than we want happiness. Right? One thing that I would want to tell you about is what is instant gratification. Have you experienced that, you go, you have a meal, and then you're actually very happy? Yeah, you went to your favorite hotel, you went to your favorite restaurant, and well, you were happy and you were singing and you were lively when you came back. Okay, let's talk about kids on the other hand. If you don't give them their favorite toy, what do they generally do? They cry, they throw temper tantrums, and if the same toy was given to the child, would be instantly happy. Right? So we want to move away from this instant gratification, this need to satiate whatever we wanted in here and now. And that is why in the long term, we fail to be happy. I want you to take the Flourish Measure now. Program was introduced by Howard when they saw the same, thought process in their children, where they could not be happy because they thought that racism was a problem, which is, but they thought that happiness can only exist if there is end of racism. Right? So there are 12 items or 12 questions on your piece of paper. What I want you to do is, can you mark P in the first 4 questions? The letter P in the first 4 questions, the letter M in the 5th and the 6th question, the letter M in the 5th and the 6th question, the letter E in your 7th and 8th question, the letter R in your 9th and your 10th question, and the letter A in your 11th and your 12th question. Now, please go ahead and fill the questions to your best possible capacity. Please understand that none of us here are going to ask you for your responses, and I'm not here to take the sheet of paper back. Right? So please answer it to your best possible capacity. I'm hoping most of you have filled the responses. Right? Now, anywhere when you see yourself marking anything less than 6, please circle that. Okay? Any score that is less than 6, please circle that. And I'll tell you why. There is a difference in being happy and flourishing. If you want your need to be satiated, like I said, and here and now, you're running a good business, you're getting the money you need, probably you're happy. But flourishing is actually having a life which is full of meaning and purpose. And this is the research for me today. PERMA model, which was given by Dr. Martin Seligman, who was the chair of the APA, American Psychological Association, and is currently working at University of Pennsylvania. What he said is that happiness lies in the 5 things. Number 1 is positive emotion. Not just being happy, no. It means having unshakable optimism. Right? It means that nothing can come in the way of what you believe in yourself. And that if you really want to be happy, if you want to feel joy, joy is at the end of the perseverance. Now let me talk about my case. Adam, okay, he's one of my clients, and what he really lacked was, he lacked interest in his studies. He lacked engagement. It means being so focused that you lose track of time. So I asked him to pick up French, right? And he was extremely infuriated because it's a very tough language. But eventually he overcame this challenge and he could actually spend hours learning the language. This is how you come across flow. This is how you develop flow. You already know what the relationships are. Not just having deep, meaningful relationships, which are of course very, very important, but having a good relationship with your colleague can also be equally important. So relationships serve 2 criteria. Number 1, your basic survival instinct, which is instrumental for your survival, very, very important, as well as something that excites you, the thrill in you, right? You seek it out with your friends, right? So this is the nature of relationship. Let me just tell you, I can throw my competition away and we can just talk about meaning, right? I wish I could tell you what the meaning of life is, and well, I can't, but let me tell you what you can do to get there. It means you need to serve somebody who's beyond you. That selfless act is actually meaning. Having a goal so clear that, again, nobody can shake it, and standing tall when obstacles show their way. Right? That is what meaning of life is. Meaning of life is peace and harmony at the end of that obstacle. Of course, who doesn't want to achieve accolades, right? Of course, it means that you'll be extremely resilient and that you will experience positive emotions, but accomplishment is not the entire agenda of being happy. And that is something very importantly was said by Mr. Seligman. I've used case study method, a qualitative analysis, where I've used the PERMA model with one of my participants. She is currently a professor, but when she came to me, she had lost hope with her PhD application, and well, she had very low, you could say, need to have a job. Right? You could see a 4 and a 3 and a 0 sometimes, that she was extremely anxious with what she was going to do with her life. This is her verbatim. I'm deeply unhappy, I'm scared of what the future holds for me, and my future seems bleak. I did a behavioral analysis where in psychology we try to point down what exactly is the problem. You take the history, you try to understand if there is any indication of depression or any other psychological disorders. One of the major causes for her problem is lack of optimism. She rationalizes. She thinks that if I don't do it now, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. But you already know how difficult it is to pursue a PhD. And there was a lot of hopelessness, there was lack of meaning, which is why I chose her as one of my participants. The first exercise that I did with her was called the Strategories. the reason why we do strength wheel is we want to understand if the client or the participant knows their strengths or not. If you see, there is a 10 everywhere, probably an 8, but 10 in 4 areas. That is what she thinks her scope is. She thinks she wants to be 10 on 10. But if you look at her real self, you will see a 6, an 8, sometimes a 3, and a 2. There is no self-esteem for her to reach that goal. Right? She is extremely ambitious, but there is that self-compassion which is lacking in her. Right? So that was my second exercise. I wanted her to understand that there is definitely some meaning in self-determination, in optimism, rather than just using pessimism. Right? So one thing that I reflected with her is that her self-esteem is very low and that she needed to use clutches of hope and optimism. The empty chair technique is again a very important exercise that therapists do, where they call on the client and they put 3 empty chairs in front of them, using imagery as one of the techniques, where they ask them to talk to their ideal self. She is a literature student, right? Her idols are Alice Walker, Judith Butler, who's currently teaching at Berkeley. And she thinks if she can't reach to Berkeley, she's a complete failure. And I'm not even exaggerating, right? So that was my primary thought behind doing this, that there can be conflict and that there can be hope, but she can use hope rather than using conflict in her. Right? The first chair is the ideal self. I said that let's imagine if Alice Walker is right in front of you. What conversation will you have with her? What conversation she'll have with you? Right? So reflection was that she was extremely anxious and she could not really progress with her activity. Then I asked her to call her real self, who she actually is, the person who is 8 on 10. Is that really such a bad place to be in? No. Right? Then came a confidant or a friend. If she would externalize her problem, right? And if a friend had to give her any suggestions, what would that friend say? That friend would be supportive, that friend would be calm, that friend would tell her to persevere nevertheless. So then why is it that she can't do it for herself? Right? What is blocking her? Right? So one of my takeaways with her was that she could use the clutches of optimism. She can be very, very pessimistic, but there is definitely value in optimism. All or nothing principle is basically having a black or white thinking. Either something is black or white, there is no gray. I reflected that that could be very harmful for her. I gave her problems like trolley problem, for those of you who are aware, and I wanted to understand that where are her morals. She said that I cannot function without my anxiety. It really helps me, it motivates me, what to do. I psychoeducated her on what is eustress and distress. Eustress is actually a positive stress. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of anxiety right before coming to the stage, right? But if you let it get the best of you, then it can cause wear and tear. The ego disturbance. Now, I was very fascinated by this, but I reflected that there is not lack of self-esteem, but there is that ego that is stopping her. If you think you're a 10 on 10, what do you think other people around you are? Which reflected on how there could be an ego disturbance rather than having low self-esteem. In my conclusion, I would like to say that there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. If you really want to be happy, nobody is going to do it for you. You need to build your happiness in the present so that it is reflected in the tomorrow. Thank you. That's my time.
Top class performance, ma'am. Put your hands together for us strongly. Yeah, happiness is a path. This is what the conclusion is. Your question.
Ma'am, what is the role of society in the happiness index? You have not mentioned it.
So again, that was not my topic. My topic is very individualistic. Like for example, if there are few areas that you would want to work on, or why is it that you are
But
unhappy?
sometimes it is such that we want to work on something, but due to societal pressure, we cannot.
You're right. Which is why I said that if you put happiness as a destination, if you think that the society has to be all right, there would be no happiness. It comes with that acceptance that you are demanding a lot from the society. And again, you need to understand we make the society makes us. So if we start at a micro level, then we can definitely observe a macro level change. So let's start with here and now. And to make it more crisp, I guess, like I said, there is going to be violence in the society. We've all come across natural calamities. People are losing their lives. Is it stopping you from not enjoying your happiness? And I know that puts me in a very difficult place, but human beings are higher animals and human beings need to survive, which is why we have this tendency. So that is my answer.
कुछ तो लोग कहेंगे, लोगों का काम है. Yes, Jadeja sir.
And if I want to ask you, in a one word, if I tell you to describe happiness, what would be that word?
Happiness is here and now. It's a building. It's a building process.
You can just tell me what is happiness as per your view in one word.
It's very difficult to say that, but like I said, happiness is in here and now. That is my answer.
Yes, Panchrat.
Ma'am, there are three terms in the presentation that I want to have a difference between the pleasure, enjoyment and happiness. And the second connected question will be, do you think all three are time bound?
Okay, so pleasure, enjoyment and happiness. Pleasure, like I said, lies in instant gratification. I want to go to the movie, I want to go now. Okay, enjoyment actually comes from having a purpose which is full of fulfillment. So that is delayed gratification. I'm okay after a year if I were you and you have a plan in mind of how my students are going to score. You're not going to see it in the now. You're going to see it in the later. You're going to see it in the future. So enjoyment lies in the future. It has to do with delayed gratification. And you said happiness. Happiness is time bound. Flourishing takes time.
But then when our students achieve that, what we want, don't you think it would be happiness to the teachers and not enjoyment?
Okay, yeah. You could be happy. Okay, there is no demarcation where you can say this is happiness, this is flourishing, this is enjoyment. It is all of the above. There is, if you see the picture that I have put here, knowingly. Do you see this happy person? There is nothing wrong with seeking happiness. What I'm trying to tell you is why wouldn't you want to think beyond? Right? Human beings are constantly constructing their reality. They are constantly constructing complex conversation. I want to have this complex conversation with you. You could be happy and you could live your life. But like I said, I want to put you in that existential anxiety. Why can't I flourish? Why just stop at happiness? You could be doing it.
Great, ma'am. Yes, your question, ma'am.
वर्किंग वुमन एंड हाउस वाइफ है कि उसको पूरा दिन वर्क टीचर्स हो या कोई भी हो और तो उसको पूरा दिन वर्क है घर जाकर भी उसको काम करना है और वर्क जैसे हाउस वाइफ है पूरा दिन वर्क में ही चला जाता है तो वो हैप्पी कब रहता है
Okay. If I have to connect it with my theory, I would say that if you are in a flow, if you're engaged, like Sir said, work may never feel like work. However, I understand that life is not as poetic as my presentation. But what you can do is take some time for yourself. It could be very simple as reading a book. It could be as simple as sitting in the balcony for 15 minutes. Right? If you're not taking out time for yourself, it doesn't have to be an entire Sunday. You need to live in those pockets if you are extremely busy. However, if you have the luxury to take a break, you can take a Sunday off or you can go on a vacation, and well, that does wonders.
Perfect, ma'am. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. You.
During down mood, how can we maintain happiness? If we
Sorry?
want to, but we don't.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
If we are having down mood, right? We are
Down?
don't feel
Low mood, okay.
Then how can we maintain happiness? We have pressure, but we want to come out, but we can't.
Okay.
Then according to you, what activities should be done?
There is no quick fix to this. I mean, personally, I know you look at me as a therapist and you look at me for answers, but I would understand what is the problem. You need to be very, very sure exactly what is the issue. If you have a low mood, which is probably because of your marital problems or your relationships, then I would focus on, for example, lack of having a demand and changing it into want. Okay, to simplify it, what I mean is, I want my partner to do this.
Why
Changing
don't
it
we
to,
do it?
just one thing, and then maybe you can continue. It would be nice if I had it.
But
If
we,
I don't have it, that's alright.
but we don't have any demand. We are okay with everything, but still we are feeling low mood.
Okay, so then maybe you can think about what exactly is lacking. Is it optimism that you are lacking? That you cannot think that the future is bright? Is it the fact that whatever you're serving, you don't find meaning in it? What is exactly the problem is what I would start with.
But what are the outcomes can we do for it to be happy?
To be happy, like I said, the 5 things. You need to be optimistic, you need to find the flow, you need to have meaning or purpose that is bigger than you need to celebrate your accomplishments, and of course, you need to focus on the other factors that I spoke about. Then that could help you out. There is no quick fix to it.
Very good. Any other question? Yes, sir.
Ma'am, as you say that there is nothing wrong in seeking happiness, but there are some criminally inclined people who seek happiness by doing antisocial activities. So is it right for them to seek that kind of happiness?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Happiness has a positive and a negative connotation. So when we can have a difference of opinion, but if that opinion is harming the society, that does not become an opinion. Right? We cannot club that here because we are not talking about antisocial activities. Then of course this person needs help. And not just putting them in an institution, but actually psychological interventions where we can point out and we can say that this is the problem and get into the remedies of it. So no, definitely I wouldn't agree that we should let them flourish. Yeah, no, definitely no.
Great, ma'am. Judges, your question. Ajay, madam.
Ma'am, I just want to know, you have shown your case study and how you worked on that case study that you have shown. I just want to know because see, everyone will not come up with one problem. Okay, like everybody is having different reason to be unhappy. So like, what are the other techniques we can use? Like normally we are not psychologists, but yeah, what can we can do?
There's a lot of power in self-talk. I would try to understand how I'm thinking because your thoughts will have a direct effect on your actions and your emotions. So you need to change your self-talk, number 1. Number 2, we try to think in extremes. We try to have a lot of demands. So we need to change that to the coulds and the woulds. We always say we must. So changing that, having a high frustration tolerance, because generally I've seen with all my clients also that we are becoming very intolerant. So these could be a few techniques that all of us could use because sometimes all of us get into the negative self-talk. So we can start from there. Definitely.
Same with personally. We are running short of time today. That's why. Yes, judges, your question.
Ma'am, wonderful presentation. I can see from your speech, your calmness, that you are a psychologist in all senses. It can clearly be visible that you are not here for any competition. You just want a very small conversation with her. Fine, ma'am. I can very well relate with your client because I'm going through my PhD journey, and yes, at times it becomes very depressive, stressful. That is true. Ma'am, one point that you have mentioned is all or nothing. I have a little difference of opinion there. Why not? Like, why always a gray area? It's okay if they want to be clear, either a yes or a no. So you say that it is not always good to be in this area. There has to be some gray area. What is the reason for that?
So again, it depends on the degree. Because when I was working with my client, she stopped applying at universities. She completely stopped her PhD process. She's still not working on her PhD. She has completely abandoned that idea. I'm still working with her. Now she is employed at one of the finest universities of the country, architecture firms. But now you see how this has just affected her motivation, her drive. That is why all or nothing is not very good. Even with us, do I have to win? And if I don't win, am I a terrible person? We should not have this. We should not think in extremes. We can have our own self-confidence and we can be okay and we can come to terms with it, is my idea. That we should not exactly be in those extremes.
But will not that affect their decision-making process?
It does.
It does.
It definitely does.
Thank you.
Sir.
One thing, I think we understood the Parma model, happiness, flourishing. So what exactly were you trying to, what is your survey about?
My survey is a case study model because this is a Western.
Yeah, I understood that, but what is it about?
It's about understanding if the model works or not.
Whether the Parma
Model is working or
works
not.
or not. Okay. And what are its implications for the school? For the school.
For the school, well, I'm not so sure because we are using a methodology where we are trying to see if the survey of our objective is working or not. So definitely, if I want to say what is the implication, maybe we can, use this model in our class because it takes very few seconds. So I'll give you an example, and I hope it takes a little. I hope it's okay. So Mr. Seligman did a study where what he basically did was he photographed everybody. And he noticed two types of smiles. One was a stewardess smile and one was a Duchenne smile. Stewardess smile is sort of a little fake. You go, you enter the airplane, they smile and then they'll be fine. A Duchenne smile is actually when you smile through your eyes. Now what he said is if you make people happy in your class, you will understand if they're connecting or not. Having positive emotions, giving them activities that will induce flow. I'm not trying to say that I'm a good teacher, but well, generally when I'm taking my class, they say, oh ma'am, the time has passed. That means I'm doing something correctly. That means I'm engaging them for 40 minutes. We can definitely use this model there. Yeah.
Anybody else? Sir.
Hello. Ma'am, it is a wonderful presentation. Really, basically you are my son's teacher. So I know that the way you are teaching and wonderful. And a whole day he is doing only psychology work. So I can understand how means you are involving him in different ways. I just want to know, ma'am, not the topic exactly. When I was talking to sir, I was telling that in the management one side means managerial skills, how to develop schools, the different. But now it is psychologists are playing a pivotal role in this everywhere now. Because you must have said that out of 4, one person is having the depression struggle. Now here, very important 2 words I have found, that is surviving or flourishing.
Yeah.
Basically, are we surviving or are we really inclined to flourish? That question comes to my mind sometimes. please, if you throw some light on.
Yeah, that's why I started with the questionnaire. And I said that anywhere you see a score which is less than 6, those are the areas that you could work on. Right? So if you are actually scoring well throughout, that means you're flourishing. And this questionnaire was done and standardized across the globe. So you can very well rely on it. If you have scored anywhere less than 7, that means that is the particular area that you would want to work on. And that's how you can move towards flourishing.
What you are saying is absolutely correct. But I want to know that surviving or flourishing. Sometimes we are just trying to survive in the particular field. To do whatever to make people happy or whatever way. But if we want to flourish, what we need to do? Flourishing means in my profession or in my whatever I like. So how to transform, I must say, how to transform from surviving to flourishing. What are the processes? Just very precisely.
So apart from the 5 factors, I would say that you would want to plan ahead. Because like I said, happiness is a path. So what are the measures that you will take right now which will actually help you in your profession? For example, let's say if you are a PhD holder, what next? It means that you could, work either with the society, because that is something that could be lacking, because you have.
But don't you think it is professionally I am trying to flourish? Professionally I am trying to survive. I am trying to survive. That's why I am getting degrees and but I am telling that surviving or flourishing mentally. That's what that question comes from.
Then sir, I think you need to serve a purpose that is more than yourself. I'm sure if you volunteered somewhere, if you helped somebody out, you may remember it now.
Yes.
Even if it is as basic as planting a tree, I remember I did it in 9th standard and I want to do it now.
And you know that I really a strong follower of Gautam Buddha.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what I always think that what he did in his life. Okay. So I feel that if we try to imitate his life, basically we can flourish mentally.
I agree.
Because there is no end of degrees, there is no end of moving ahead. Second question that what I want to know, are happiness and enjoyment these both the words are similar?
Yes sir. Because happiness and enjoyment. Happiness and enjoyment will seek what you want it now, so you're enjoying. Pleasure. Enjoyment has to do with how you will feel if you've succeeded or if you've achieved a purpose in life. So there is a difference between being happy and having a sense of enjoyment. Because enjoyment will come if you are serving your goal. So there is a difference.
Are social media has any role to play?
Definitely. Definitely, because we have a either very inflated or a very deflated sense of self. We are not at par with who we are. There are a lot of studies which indicate that people have eating disorders, there are cases of cyberbullying, so definitely there is an effect of social media on our youngsters and even us for that matter.
Last question. Last question. How to transform pressure to pleasure to students?
Pressure
if the
to
students
pleasure.
are feeling pressurized for anything, for any reason, how to transform it to pleasure? Because if we feel that if you transform your pressure to pleasure, then you can erase all your pressure and you can enjoy your things. So how to teach students?
Something that I've actually prescribed to everybody, including my students, is maintaining a daily journal, to-do lists, and also having a sense of self that whatever I've accomplished, it matters. Because we keep going on with our life, we have gotten a lot of awards, but we never appreciate them. We just say, okay, what next, and let's move on. Do we actually enjoy it? So that's how we can change pressure to pleasure. We've gone through 6 days of presentations and probably making our presentations airtight. But the minute this is over, we'll be back to our lives. Did we actually enjoy the process? What about what did we learn? Are any of us going to sit back, make a journal? No. So that could actually make pressure a pleasure. That is something that I
My
would say.
son is a cricketer. Okay, he wants to be a cricketer. So he every match, every state level match or national level match when he is playing, so he is feeling, sometimes he feels pressure, but when I try to release his pressure to pleasure, the first thing what basically I say that you enjoy your failure.
Correct.
Then only you can enjoy your game. And once you enjoy your failure, then your pressure will go up and you can enjoy. I think that is the correct process.
Correct. Celebrating your accomplishment and having a very cognitive process that it's okay to fail. It's fine.
No questions, no activities, ma'am. Only observations. Firstly, a very classy presentation. You spoke of Berkeley. You had an activity of the Harvard thing. Such thematic presentation, very nice, immaculate English that you spoke into. You also had some jargons of your psychology or psychiatry, which you very seamlessly explained to all of us. The conclusion was a little shorter. We would have loved the conclusion to be a little longer and more prolonged. Your honesty, mind-blowing, salute to it. Once when you say I can throw the competition out of the window, very good. You said life is not as poetic as it may sound, but let me say very nice despite of that. One question came here and one question from the brightest minds in the hall. The first question which comes, what is happiness? So maybe you could have dwelt upon it a little more on the survey also. Excellent in time management also. You have only overshoot 47 seconds, which yesterday, today, the best.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Excellent.